There's always a lot of curiosity when it comes to me and my favorite YouTubers when they take YouTube breaks. I always wonder, where have they been and what have they been doing? So today, I'm going to answer that question for you. Make sure you stay to the end of this video because I'm going to talk about how I really felt about Mexico and while I probably won't be moving there in the foreseeable future. Question number one is, what made you take a break from posting? So the biggest thing that made me take a break from posting is going back to school. I went into the International TEFL program. You can watch this video after this to see why I ended up going. And it was a lot of preparation. But after the program, I saw that a lot of my friends and colleagues were having an issue. Unfortunately, teaching alone was not enough to sustainably live in Mexico. So I started doing some searching and I actually found out some schools where if you have your degree, they pay you a little bit more. So I decided I would come back to the United States and go back to school. Of course, what I didn't know was going to happen was that I was going to end up studying for the GACE assessment for 1 month and taking it. So the GACE assessment is a test that they have you take in order to get to a lot of programs. The day of the test came and a lot of really terrible things happened in my life actually that day, but I ended up passing with flying colors. And so afterwards, I went into applying for schools. Now, there is a school that I love. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in this video. And I ended up getting into the school. But in order to do that, there was a lot of paperwork and stuff like that. So it's really been a juggling act trying to balance adulthood. So the next question is, how have you been emotionally and mentally while you've been away? This question is actually really hard for me, but the truth is that I've been very overwhelmed. One thing about my ADHD that I notice is that it goes through phases. I have high points where I'm super focused and everything is getting done, and then I have really low points. And I find that on any given day, I fluctuate a lot. Go to this video where I explain the spoons theory to further understand what I'm talking about when it comes to energy and ADHD. But one part of managing my overwhelm is that I have to drop things. I actually watched this really good video by one of the authors that I really love, and she talks about the glass ball theory. And the glass ball theory is basically kind of about prioritization, and it's we're all juggling a bunch of balls, and some of them are plastic, some of them are glass. Our glass balls are the things that if we make them fall, they will have big impacts. So our health, our spirituality, our family, and our friends. And so as you juggle those glass balls, there's also some rubber balls in there, which are the things that you can drop off and not necessarily suffer for it. And I know for me with YouTube, I try to change from long form content for a minute and supplement it with short term content. As an adult, it just is impossible to get everything done. So that has been the biggest thing. And emotionally, I feel I've been a lot more emotional lately. I think it's just the idea that I am changing a lot, and I feel I'm in this in-between season where God is preparing me for something amazing. I've had so many people come and talk to me lately about my ministry and my next book and moving forward, and so I've been making plans, and it's just I am cherishing all these moments that I have right now because I know that in a few more weeks or months, it's probably not going to be this way. This next question is a little bit vulnerable, but it is, what has changed in your life since your last video? To be honest, everything has changed. The biggest thing that has changed in my life during this time is that I am going on my health journey again. I was a big runner back last year. I am at Planet Fitness right now because it's Sunday. So today we did our indicator run. So as you guys can see, I'm not cute right now because we just did a really hard workout. So I just ran 5 miles with yoga beats. But I ended up taking a break because I hurt my Achilles tendon and the thing on the side of your leg that runs this way. I'll see if I can insert a picture. And so for a long time, running was a really painful thing. So I took a break from it. But I was inspired by a couple of my friends to really start getting my weight together. Let's be honest, in this next season, I feel like I'm going to be married and I'm going to have my wedding. And so I want to make sure that my body is ready and prepared for whatever is next. And it's actually been one of the hardest things that I have ever done. You guys probably don't know this part of my story, but I've always kind of struggled with my weight. When I was a child, I had a health issue that made it to where I didn't gain weight at all, and my metabolism was super duper fast. So I was running through food like a lot. And then I ended up having like a therapy for it. And then I went to the other side where my metabolism is really, really slow. So it's actually really difficult for me to lose weight. And for a long time, I told myself this lie that I couldn't lose weight. And because of that, I would just eat way too much and I would feel bloated. And I really didn't take responsibility for my health. And, you know, a friend brought it to my attention, like, just because you have this doesn't mean that you can't lose weight. So I've really been trying to heal my relationship with food, and it's been so amazing and incredible, but also so exhausting. Like, a lot of days I feel like beating my scale up against the wall. Comment down below if you know what I'm talking about, and also comment down below if you like a little video on my health journey and how I'm healing my relationship with food. All right, let's take a little lipstick break. The color on my lips today is the Sephora Laser Beam number 10. Much better. The next question is, what have you been working on since you've been gone? This is a big deal because I've been working on a lot of things. I feel like God is calling me to really invest in my YouTube channel during this season. And one of the biggest things that I did over my break is that I went back to some of my old videos and I changed around a lot of things. You guys might have noticed, especially if you went back to like the Paris Geller video, the wearing video, that I cut my intros. I realized that in the past, I was talking way too much during my intros, so I slashed those in half, and I saw a really big increase in my watch time. I also went back and changed a lot of the thumbnails, and I also have been working on my blog. So if you guys now go over to the author Gabrielle Denise website, you can go over and see the blog posts, which have like kind of transcripts from this video, but with a little bit more information. I wanted to allow you guys to have a readable format just in case you might not have time to watch a video one time. So those are some of the things that I've been planning. Make sure you guys subscribe so that you don't miss anything, because you guys will be the first to know when my new book is coming out and the first to know about any updates on this YouTube channel. This is the second to last question. After this, I will talk about Mexico and really spill the tea. The tea is piping hot on that one. The second to last question is, did you ever think about quitting your YouTube channel? And I just want to be totally honest with you guys. In my whole 18 days of being away from YouTube, not once did the idea of quitting come into my head. You guys are so special to me, and this channel really means a lot. I feel like I'm really building towards the purpose that God has for me in this channel. And so I don't plan on quitting anytime soon. So let's talk about Mexico. I was really nervous and hesitant to talk about this topic because I feel like the relationship between Mexico and the United States when it comes to media is already rocky enough. And I didn't want to be another person who was adding on to that somewhat negative view about Mexico. But after making such a big scene about me wanting to move to Mexico and stuff like that, it just didn't feel right in my spirit to move on and pretend like the Mexico trip didn't happen. And so I just want to say that if you are from Mexico, Mexico is a beautiful place. But I also want you to know that I am going to be honest here, and that it's really important that you stay and listen to the whole thing before leaving your comments down below. I was in Mexico for a total of 5 weeks. That was 1 week more than the original trip that I had planned, but as part of my program, I had a 1 week Spanish course. And so I decided why not just stay to finish that, because I didn't know when I was going to be in Guadalajara next. I come from a major metropolitan city, and so Guadalajara reminded me a lot of like the inner city parts of where I live. And because of that, I saw some of the same issues that I saw from where I live, namely trash. I found that it was a little bit discouraging, to say the least. But it was also awesome because I got to see the business owners, and they cared so much for their businesses down there that they would get outside in the morning and they would literally sweep the streets with a broom. I have never seen that in the United States, and it was really cool to me. Another really cool thing to me was how good the food was. I went grocery shopping, and not only were the groceries more natural and more affordable, but they didn't make my stomach hurt. I remember the first time I tried Mexican pancakes, and I fell in love. They were so good because for some reason the pancakes here in America, they just make me go to the toilet right away. I felt safe most of the time. Like walking around the city, I didn't really have too much of an issue, but there was always this sneaking feeling in my chest. And one thing that they don't really talk about in Mexico is the missing people signs. So Guadalajara has a huge issue with missing people, and it's something that they don't really advertise, and you wouldn't really know unless you went there. And the signs are like plastered everywhere. And for the first few days, I was so involved in my school that I just tried to ignore them. And I told myself that they were probably signs from like a long time ago and that it was nothing to worry about. But I noticed that the longer that I stayed in Guadalajara, the more it started to bother me. Like, where were these people and why were there so many of them that were missing? And I think internally, I kind of knew the answer to this question, but it scared me. And so instead, I just became hyper vigilant. And another thing that happened is that I knew somebody who actually got their phone stolen while in Guadalajara. And because of that, like, I was really nervous whenever I was walking on the streets. And even though I know that in the United States, like, there's people who steal as well, it was kind of a bummer to be walking around the city being so hyper vigilant, because I feel like because of that, I didn't really have the ability to relax. That's kind of the thing with solo traveling in general. You have to be really careful all the time. And if I did go back to Guadalajara, I would definitely want to have like someone with me, preferably a man, so that I could kind of get less attention, because I felt like I was garnering attention. And that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about that kind of surprised me about Guadalajara, was the kind of negative view towards Americans. I noticed that there was kind of 3 different attitudes when it came to a lot of the people in Guadalajara versus Americans. The first is those people that were super friendly and kind. This was 90% of the people that I met there, and it made me want to go back because I felt so loved and accepted. Even though my Spanish was más o menos, it was very nice to be able to talk to people and have conversations. And some of my favorite memories happened in Ubers. The second type of people is the people that really irritated me, and it was those people who had like silent hatred towards Americans. I will never forget that one time I had an Uber ride, and it had been a really long day. And so I go to get into this Uber with this person, and they were playing some really strange music. I don't even think that they greeted me, but I was quiet all the same. I made sure I cleaned up after myself when I left. And when I got out the car, I realized that they rated me poorly. And Uber has this system where they rate you based on, you know, how good of a passenger you are or something like that. And I had a really good rating, but her rating I knew was really bad for me. And I realized then that like not all people in Mexico, especially Guadalajara, viewed Americans in a good way. And it was extremely sad to me. And then the third type of people is the people that make me not want to go back to Guadalajara again. And these are the people that saw that I was American and they targeted me because of it. I can count on my hand maybe 2 or 3 experiences where I was approached by some pretty sketch people and they were asking me questions. One time I was just sitting in the park, minding my business, relaxed, and this lady came up and she was asking me if she could give me a survey in Spanish about about a time that I received money from the United States. I was about 3 questions in that I started pretending like I didn't know what she was talking about. And when she asked me how much money I got in this transfer, I literally lied to her and said the equivalent of like $5 US, because I wasn't about to get jumped or mugged as being the American that was getting a lot of money. And I just thought it was really sad that those people saw me and they saw money, and it just made me feel really uneasy. Even some of like the people who were selling cell phones, as soon as like, you know, I walked by, I heard, oh, American, American, and then all of a sudden it was like 10 or 12 voices yelling at me about these different cell phone plans and stuff that they can offer me. And you just have to know that as an American, you really need to know Spanish. Like, I can't emphasize this enough. Otherwise, you will get ripped off by some people. And these 3 things were something that was really heartbreaking for me, because I loved Guadalajara and I would have lived there in a second. But seeing those things made me think twice about what kind of relationship I want to have with the country that I eventually end up living in. I don't want to be looking around my back all the time. And especially since I'm a Black American, I think I would always like stand out in a crowd of Hispanic people. And so even though 95% of them are kind, caring, generous people, the other 5% make it very uncomfortable for me to travel or solo travel in Guadalajara, Mexico. Finally, I want to talk about the Christian perspective of why Mexico was poisonous for me. So when you're solo traveling, one of the most important things that you need to do for yourself is to make friends very quickly. And so I found myself like making friends and like quick colleagues of the people in my school and the people who lived like in the same building as me, because doing that meant that I was going places together with people and it was a lot safer. Unfortunately, I realized very quickly that my views and like how I operate is very different than a lot of other people operate. I come from a very Christian environment, and you know, I had my time in college where I did a lot of drinking and smoking and partying. You can hear all about my lifestyle and all of that and how God restored me in my book, Since When Did Single Mean Sad? But I am no longer at that point in my life anymore. And I felt like with Mexico, a lot of the things that they were doing on the weekend was centered around drinking and smoking and partying. And so if I didn't want to be in my room by myself, which was a little frightening at night, then that meant that I had to go out with friends on the town. And I actually had some really awesome people to hang out with, but it still didn't take away from the fact that I felt a little bit pressured to drink. And I didn't get like super drunk or anything like that, but I did find that I was indulging in alcohol a lot more than I wanted to. And I felt like almost the alcohol was a part of that culture, and that if I was to live in Mexico, I would have to really go out of my way to find a community that wasn't focused around drinking and alcohol. And even salsa dancing, which was something I was so excited to do, I quickly realized that that had a whole pipeline to some other things that I just don't do. And so I think that overall Guadalajara just wasn't the place for me. And I also found that since a lot of Mexico is Catholic, it was kind of difficult to find Christian churches. Overall, would I go to Guadalajara again? Yes, for sure. I'm thinking of like planning a trip to just go back there because I want to visit some of my favorite restaurants, get some pancakes you already know, and I just really want to explore some of the nature parts that I didn't get a chance to experience. But I just also know that like when I go there, it would be nice to have a smaller group of people with me. And I do want to say thank you, because I do know that some people warned me about Guadalajara, and I really did see a lot, and it really did open my eyes to what they were really trying to warn me about. To find out more tea about Guadalajara, and also to know some of the things that I packed to go there, make sure you check out this video on the screen. Also make sure if you haven't already that you give this video a big fat like. And now let me pray us out. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for this person who is watching this video. Lord, I pray that they learn something important about breaks and how imperative that it can be to take breaks during times of their life. And I pray, Lord, that you give them the courage to implement the plans of what you want them to do, whether it's a YouTube channel or a business or something that you put on your heart. And I pray, Lord, that you would provide them with the correct resources and the correct people to walk alongside them so that they can accomplish this goal or dream or whatever you would have them to do. And I pray, Lord, for everybody who is considering going to Mexico, I pray that you would just give them a clear view of things to know. And I pray that this video would be helpful for them. But I also pray, Lord, that you would just open their mind and help them to not be too closed-minded, because that can also be a really dangerous thing. And I thank you for this opportunity that I've had to travel abroad. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Anyway, I love you to the moon and back, and make sure you watch this video or this video here in the cards, and I'll see you next week. Bye.